Hi, I'm Stephanie Valinsky, Deputy Director at the Illinois Supreme Court Commission on Professionalism. Welcome to Reimagining Law. We're exploring how legal professionals are adapting the delivery of legal services to meet the needs of today's consumers. I'm joined today by Patrick Krill, Principal and Founder of Krill Strategies. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Stephanie, thank you for the invitation to be here. It's great to be chatting with you.
So why don't we jump in? You have a big study that just came out. You released this groundbreaking study on attorney mental health and well-being last month. And, the data from the study shows that, almost half the attorneys are experiencing symptoms of depression and anxiety, and over half of the attorneys screen for hazardous drinking. And on top of this, women seem to be higher in both those categories than men. So can you briefly discuss the study and your research around this?
Sure. And I think you actually did a pretty good job of summarizing it at a very high level, but this was a large research project. We surveyed lawyers in California and DC. It was a large bicoastal random sample, which is important for purposes of being able to generalize your findings to a broader population of currently practicing attorneys. And the data was captured last summer, so we were a few months into the pandemic at the time. And as you say, we found that you could basically, I think it would be fair to characterize our findings as being demonstrative of an ongoing well-being crisis in law, one that was clearly exacerbated and worsened by the attendant stressors of COVID-19 and everything else that was happening over the course of the last year. So levels of depression, anxiety, perceived stress, hazardous drinking, all really at, I would say, unsustainable levels. Many people are struggling, and women are being impacted much more negatively than men. To be clear, men aren't enjoying robust mental health, but the women in the study were experiencing higher levels of just about everything that we wouldn't want them to be experiencing higher levels of. Work-family conflict was implicated as a driver of much of the distress that we detected. And we can talk about that if you'd like. I think that has implications across a variety of domains.
Okay. Yeah, no, please go into that.
So one of the things we looked at was whether people were thinking about leaving the profession due specifically to mental health, burnout, or stress. About 18% of men are. 1 in 4 women are thinking about leaving, not for other reasons, but specifically due to mental health, burnout, or stress. And we identified predictors, risk factors for those thoughts. And for women, it was work-family conflict. And if a female attorney has a high level of work-family conflict, she is 4.5 times more likely to think about leaving the profession due to mental health, burnout, or stress. To me, that's very instructive. It's obviously unfortunate, but it's also instructive. And I think it points us towards, possible solutions, or at least highlights areas that we really do need to focus on.
For sure. No, and I think, that feeds into kind of my next question about, okay, so now what? I mean, that is a very alarming data. And, we all are starting to, hear more about the focus on going back to work and being in the office. And, as we discussed, Illinois just fully reopened as of this past Friday with very few COVID restrictions left. So, and you've said, I've seen in presentations, you've said that, the workforce returning is not the same one that left in March of 2020 at the start of the pandemic. So what does the returning workforce want in a professional environment these days? And how can organizations give that to them?
The workforce that any law firm or legal employer sent home a year and a half ago is not the same workforce that's going to be coming back. The composite psychological or behavioral health profile of that workforce has shifted. And for many people, it's shifted in an unfavorable direction, as evidenced by that data that we captured in California and DC. And so recognizing that, I think, is key for any employer. People are going to need additional supports, additional resources, accommodations, et cetera. But to your question about, what do people want? Different people want different things. Some people are eager to get back into the workplace really sort of on a full-time basis. I would say those people are probably in the minority. There are also probably a small group of people who want to stay home on a full-time basis. More people are sort of somewhere in the middle, right? They want some level of flexibility. So ideally, they could sort of take the good of the last year and a half. Maybe it was allowing them to spend more time with family, thereby reducing some of that work-family conflict, or whatever it may be, right? I mean, you could fill in the blanks based on your own specific situation. But ideally, I think people would like to hold on to the good and then, sort of ditch the rest and go back to, the things about being around coworkers or being back in the office that they liked. All of which really lands us somewhere in the middle, kind of this hybrid model that I think most employers are likely contemplating.
How can both legal professionals and their employers prepare for going back to the office?
Let's start with the employer. What do they need to do to prepare? One, as I say, recognize and acknowledge that your workforce is different. Many people have been experiencing mental health distress. A significant number of people began drinking more hazardously over the course of the last year and a half. More people are burned out. So people are different. There's also a heightened level of anxiety about returning. So employers need to recognize that, prepare for that, and be ready to offer some level of flexibility, accommodation, and support. A question I get from managers and sort of supervisors in firms, which is typically who I'm advising, is, what do we do to help the people on our team, right? On a very sort of micro level, what can we do as individuals to help the people working with us or for us? And I always like to say, don't be someone else's risk factor, right? Recognize if your own behavior is causing unnecessary stress in someone else's life. The profession is always going to be stressful, but if we can all sort of look out for ways or identify ways that we could stop bringing unnecessary stress or pressure into the lives of those around us and those who maybe report to us, that would be key. Don't be someone else's risk factor for a mental health or substance use problem. For the employees, I think it's important for the person who's going back into the workplace. Maybe they're a partner, so they're not technically an employee. It is nonetheless important to begin preparing, right? Identifying what about this experience is perhaps a little bit stressful for you, and also check your thinking. You mentioned that levels of depression and anxiety and hazardous substance use have really sort of gone through the roof. And for many people, when they're struggling with those issues, even if it's sort of a mild level of depression or anxiety, our thinking can be affected, right? And we can find ourselves experiencing a lot of distorted thinking errors, cognitive distortions, however you want to label it. And in a period where we're confronted with a lot of additional stressors, like going back into the office, our thinking can undermine us. So what does that mean on a really concrete level? Ask yourself, am I catastrophizing, right? Am I sort of envisioning the worst possible scenario? Am I overgeneralizing? Am I jumping to conclusions? Am I using past experiences to sort of project what this is going to look like? Or am I maybe minimizing the benefit of getting back around people and magnifying all of the things about this that is perhaps stressing me out?
Thank you so much for joining us today, Patrick. Please like and share this video and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on new episodes. Information on how to stay connected with the Commission, Patrick, and his work is in the notes. Patrick and I discussed just a portion of his study today. There's much more. If you'd like to read more, it's free to access, and you can also find a link to the study in the notes. Thank you so much for watching, and stay well.